Black Atlantic. The term Black Atlantic was first employed by the British critic Paul Gilroy. He addressed the cultural and historical linkages which unified the peoples of African descent on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. For Gilroy, the important point is not just to register this linkage as a historical event, but to show how the ongoing effects of that exchange remain the constituting factor in a discursive economy that continues to dominate the social and political practices of the modern world. His contention is that all those societies, and indeed the economic and political framework of the Atlantic region as a whole, have been determined in large part by the linkages formed in that first era of mercantilism and expansion when the principal cargo was the bodies of black Africans. Gilroy emphasizes the interdependence of all the cultures which depended on this exchange of enslaved bodies across the Black Atlantic. Thus, he analyzes the cross influence of black intellectuals who worked not within specific and isolated nations or states, but within a transnational framework in which their work flourished and cross fertilized. Ethnic and national identities were reworked through travel and exchange. The black intellectuals of the 19th and early 20th centuries learned from their travels in and engagements with European cultures and traditions of thought. Using the image of the sailing ship, which is also a reminder of the slaving voyages, Gilroy proposes that transculturation is what constituted black identity. But Gilroy is also emphatic that European consciousness was hybridized due to its exposure to African cultures. While Gilroy accepts that fear, suffering, and terror is at the heart of the African experience due to slavery, he acknowledges that it also produced a double consciousness, for it gave the slave both suffering and the possibility of emancipation. He thus rejects any argument about national or racial purity, seeing cultural identity as the effect of traversals, contests, and conflicts. For Gilroy, black culture was not simply the periphery to the European center. Instead, he proposes European modernity was dependent upon Europe's cultural exposure to new cultural forms and practices such as black music. Similarly, for the blacks, European ideas of emancipation ensured that the rise of an intellectual tradition was not bound up only with suffering or exploitation. Both European and black cultures in Gilroy's analysis are transnational in origin, and neither has any cultural purity.